So the first new feature we're going to look at relates to responsibility centers. So if you're a customer that uses multiple responsibility centers, maybe because you have multiple branches, if we go into admin and responsibility center, and I'm going to open up my Burlington Responsibility Center here. If I scroll right to the bottom, you'll notice I can now map a responsibility center in Service 365 to a location in QuickBooks Online. So QuickBooks Online locations are the equivalent of responsibility centers in Service 365. So I'm going to show you how to set this up. You can see I've already mapped this branch. See, I have some other ones here. This is data that it's pulling from QuickBooks Online. So if I flip over to QuickBooks, I'm going to go to my settings and accountant settings. I'm going to show you how you can set this data up. Okay, so I'm going to click on advanced. And if I scroll down to categories, you can see I have track locations is turned on. So the first thing you need to do in QuickBooks Online is turn locations on. So you can see track locations is checked on. Okay, so we'll exit that screen and we'll go back to settings and now all lists. And now we're going to click on locations and you can see I've set these branches up. So I've got these 4 branches here in QuickBooks Online. That means I can map them in Service 365. So that means that when I push a sales invoice from Service 365 to QuickBooks Online, it's automatically going to map it to the correct location in QuickBooks Online. So just a reminder of how to do that within Service 365. We're going to go to Admin, scroll down to Responsibility Center, open up the one that you want to map, and it's the bottom option here, QuickBooks Location, and that's where you map it. The next new feature relates to quotes. So when you're sending out quotes to customers, you can now group all the line items for labor onto one line. So if I go to my worksheet here within this quote, you can see I have 4 line items on the quote, 2 for material and 2 for labor. We've added a journeyman doing 4 hours at regular time and an apprentice also doing 4 hours at regular time. So if we go into our print settings, and you can see that I now have a new box that says group labor. So I'm going to take a look at the PDF and see how this comes out. So you can see I have 2 line items for material showing separately, but my labor is all now grouped onto one line with one price. Within jobs, you can now set the quantity to bill on an invoice. Let's take a look and see how this works and see how we might use this feature. So within this job, I have 4 line items. So I have 2 resources and 2 items. So I'm going to go ahead and start to create my invoice. So I'm going to click Final Invoice and Close Job. And I have a new option here called Manually Set Quantity to Bill. So I'm going to check this box. And now it's going to bring up all of my line items below. And you can see the unit price, the amount I committed on the job, the quantity to bill, which by default is set to the same amount that you committed, and the total price. So there's a couple of reasons why I might want to change this information at this point. So with this item here, a humidifier pad. Let's say I use 20 on the job, but I can only bill the customer for 10. Let's say because we lost a box of humidifier pads while we were on site. There was 10 in a box, so we used 20. 20 need to come out of our inventory, and we need to record the cost of using 20, but we can only bill the customer for 10. So we can change this to 10. So let's see how that looks on the invoice. Now we'll save and we'll process the invoice. And you can see my humidifier pads are now only showing 10 on the job. So all 20 pieces are going to have been removed from my inventory, and I'm going to be recording the cost of those. It's going to be included in my margin on the job and in all of my reports, but I'm only billing the customer for 10. Okay, let's just go ahead and delete this invoice. And we'll take a look at another use case here. So if we go again, Final Invoice, we'll go back to our quantity to bill. And now let's say we want to actually take something off the invoice altogether. Let's say it was warranty work, or for whatever reason, maybe we just sent along an apprentice for them to get some experience, but we can't actually charge the customer for that time. So for this resource here of Jane Doe, so Jane did 5 hours on the job, but we're not going to bill for them. So we'll set the quantity to bill to 0 and press save. And now let's take a look and see how that works on the invoice. And as you can see, Jane's time has been removed from the invoice. Dan C is the only resource, the only employee that was now being billed for on this job. So there's a few different reasons why you might want to reduce or increase the quantity to bill on a job, and you can now do that when creating the invoice. The first new feature relating to purchase orders is regarding how you enter the shipping information. So previously you would have had to enter the shipping cost for each individual line item, and now you can just add it once for the entire PO. So on your line items tab you can select shipping, and then you can enter the quantity and the cost. So if it was $25 to ship every item on the purchase order, you only need to add that once, and then I'll now add it to the PO as a line item. Okay, the second feature relates to when you upload the vendor invoice. So I'm going to upload a sample vendor invoice here. And we'll just upload this. And you'll see that I now have a box that says overwrite tax. So if the vendor has rounded the tax differently to what Service365 rounded it up to, and it now doesn't match, you can now overwrite the tax amount and send that information to QuickBooks so that the two systems match. And final feature I want to show you with purchase orders relates to when you duplicate a PO. So if we go to the hamburger menu and duplicate PO, and you'll see I now have the option to link the new PO to inventory or to a job. So if I select a job, and I can pick from any of my open jobs. So when I duplicate a PO, the new PO will have all the same pricing, the same vendor, the same line items, but I can choose, do I want it to go to a job or to inventory?